Jimmy Kimmel.
As I was saying before I was interrupted, I'm happy to be here tonight with you.
You know, Brian, last night, Jimmy Kimmel walked a very fine line. He didn't really apologize.
I've been hearing a lot about what I need to say and do tonight. Our government cannot be allowed to control what we do and do not say on television, and that we have to stand up to it.
What do you think of his monologue?
I think Kimmel very boldly said that he's not going to be frightened or intimidated by the Trump administration. He's going to keep doing what he wants to do. And in some ways, he has more power than ever because ABC has explicitly, affirmatively brought him back after this week-long suspension. Kimmel is not going to water it down. He's not going to go soft. He's not going to get weak. He's going to continue to speak out. And for Kimmel, that means criticizing Trump, mocking the president, and also pointing out what the administration's doing.
This show is not important. What is important is that we get to live in a country that allows us to have a show like this.
In some ways, I think Kimmel is now emboldened. He wants to talk about free speech in America. He wants to defend free speech in America, and not just his own free speech. I thought the most telling moment was when Kimmel said, you know, President Trump has threatened Jimmy Fallon too. And if they go after Fallon, I hope all of you watching at home speak out 10 times as loudly as he did to defend me.
We have to speak out against this guy because he's not stopping. Walter Cronkite must be spinning in his grave right now. He's dead, right? Yeah.
In other words, Kimmel believes this is bigger than him. This is about late night television, but also about free speech in America. And he was showing solidarity with his rivals.
What do you think of Donald Trump's response today?
In between the time Kimmel taped his monologue and the time that it actually aired on ABC, Trump posted a new threat against ABC on Truth Social. You know, it was a rambling post that was at times dismissive of Kimmel, mocking his ratings, but at other times clearly meant to intimidate ABC, saying that Kimmel puts the network in jeopardy. Well, who's the one that decides that? It's President Trump. He is the one that is using the powers of the government to try to punish perceived enemies and rivals. So it was really notable that on the very same night, Kimmel is out there saying, I fear ABC is going to be targeted again because of this show. Trump did exactly that. He targeted ABC because of Kimmel's show.
The President of the United States made it very clear he wants to see me and the hundreds of people who work here fired from our jobs. Our leader celebrates Americans losing their livelihoods because he can't take a joke.
President Trump also is framing Kimmel's return as a campaign contribution. What could he do legally against Kimmel and ABC?
I don't know of any legal experts who are taking Trump's latest threat seriously from a legal standpoint. You know, when he talks about this show being an illegal campaign contribution, there's nothing to actually back that up. There's no case law to actually back up the idea that a late night talk show is a campaign contribution to the Democrats. Furthermore, President Trump is not running for anything right now. He's not in the middle of a campaign. This would be exceedingly difficult to actually argue as a matter of law, but as a matter of PR, as a matter of publicity, it's a great talking point for the president and one that I'm sure we'll hear again.
He also teased Trump and said, people are watching me now because of you.
Kimmel look, he was fired. He had no talent. He had no ratings.
Well, I do tonight. You almost have to feel sorry for him. He did his best to cancel me. Instead, he forced millions of people to watch the show. That backfired bigly.
By 8 a.m. Eastern time, it was already the most watched clip on Kimmel's YouTube channel all year long. In the Trump era, every reaction has a counter reaction. And so President Trump can mock Kimmel's ratings, but the pressure against ABC has caused Kimmel's ratings to skyrocket. You know, the ratings are through the roof because of all this attention, because of all this pressure, and ultimately because of all this publicity. We've seen this story before where Trump will target someone or something and there will suddenly be a groundswell of audience interest and attention. It's almost as if Trump chooses his perceived enemies, he chooses his target, and then that target becomes even bigger as a result of all the attention and all the scrutiny. We've seen this over and over again where Trump will go after somebody, he'll attack somebody, and then that person will become even higher profile, will become even more of a vocal critic against Trump.
He might have to release the Epstein files to distract us from this now.
Most of the most popular, most viewed clips on Kimmel's YouTube channel are anti-Trump clips. You know, I love his celebrity interviews, but the celebrity interviews and the sketches, those are not the most popular videos on Kimmel's channel. It is his political commentary. And this clip from Tuesday night is now Kimmel's biggest of all. This monologue is racking up millions of views per hour.
We know that about 25% of the ABC stations owned by Sinclair and Nexstar are refusing to air Kimmel. What are the real risks for ABC here, and does the network have any leverage?
You know, there is a history in America of local stations sometimes boycotting or rejecting the national programming, and that history is not a proud one. I remember back in the 90s when some ABC stations refused to air Ellen DeGeneres, her episode of Ellen, where she shared her sexual orientation. Those ABC stations, some of them that chose not to air that Ellen episode, that's kind of embarrassing now when we look back at that history. I wonder if this episode will also be similarly embarrassing, that Nexstar and Sinclair put their own political priorities and their own business interests ahead of the public interest. We don't know what Nexstar and Sinclair are going to do. We don't know if this boycott of Kimmel is going to continue. But if it does, I believe viewers in those affected markets are just going to work a little harder to go and find Kimmel's show. You know, there's nothing more interesting and tantalizing in media than some show that seems forbidden. It seems off limits. So if Nexstar and Sinclair continue to treat Kimmel that way, if they keep basically preempting his show and hiding it from viewers in some markets, I think those viewers are just going to work a little harder. They're going to go find the show on YouTube or Hulu or Disney Plus or wherever it is, and they're actually going to be more interested in watching Kimmel as a result.
Could there be a chance that ABC moves the show to Hulu? And would that set a precedent for other late night shows?
I don't see Disney making any short-term changes to Kimmel being on broadcast. I think when Kimmel's contract comes up next May, that's going to be a big decision point for Disney. It may make sense to move the late night talk show to streaming, making it more of a subscription play and removing the pressures that the Trump administration can exert on local stations.
Advertisers, does this ordeal make Kimmel a better buy, or is it a riskier buy now?
Right now, Kimmel might seem like a riskier buy for advertisers, but that's been true more broadly about the television landscape. Political programming in general is not an easy sell to advertisers. There are lots of sponsors that try to avoid politically themed programming, and that was true before this most recent Kimmel controversy. So I don't think that the Kimmel advertiser lineup is going to change markedly as a result of all this. Around the edges, though, ABC does benefit whenever the ratings do rise for Kimmel's show. So there will be a short-term benefit financially for ABC in all of this renewed interest.
Do you think that ABC could use their sports or other entertainment programming as a kind of leverage against these stations to say, hey, we'll pull it all from you if you keep on doing this?
ABC definitely holds most of the cards in these talks with Nexstar and Sinclair. And notably, the local station owners have not been as outspoken this week as they were last week. They are not out there bashing ABC or Kimmel. They are not out there using their local stations to try to exert pressure right now. It seems to me these local station owners probably want to come to some resolution. But what we are seeing is the slow unspooling of broadcast TV. Another divide between red and blue America, with these conservative station owners not wanting to tolerate a liberal late night host. That's a small story in some ways, but it's also part of a very big story about America pulling itself apart. Another tear in our national fabric.
Maybe the silver lining from this is we found one thing we can agree on.
Do you also think that at some point that the American public may just turn around and say, this is ridiculous that you are so focused on this thing?
For the most part, American impressions of President Trump are baked in and they are set, they are steady, they are basically fixed into cement. This Kimmel controversy did break through across the country in a way that few Trump controversies have this year. I think it stood out because, number one, people know who Jimmy Kimmel is. Number two, people value their own free speech rights. Number three, it's a very vivid example of government pressure being applied to a private corporation. Some of the Trump administration controversies and scandals this year, some of Trump's power grabs, have been much more in the weeds, involving obscure federal agencies or companies or groups you've never heard of before. But everyone's heard of Jimmy Kimmel. So this story has been a wake-up call for Americans, whether you voted for Trump or not. It's been a wake-up call about how Trump and his allies are trying to wield their power.
I want to thank everyone who checked in. Maybe most of all, I want to thank the people who don't support my show and what I believe, but support my right to share those beliefs anyway. Like Ben Shapiro, Clay Travis, Candace Owens, Mitch McConnell, Rand Paul.
This free speech fight started to become bipartisan in recent days, with Senator Ted Cruz and podcaster Joe Rogan and other Trump allies speaking out, defending the rights of ABC and Kimmel. Even though they don't like what Kimmel says, they defend his right to do it. That is important, and that's going to have a lasting effect.
It takes courage for them to speak out against this administration, and they did, and they deserve credit for it, and thanks. Even my old pal Ted Cruz, I don't think I've ever said this before, but Ted Cruz is right.
When Kimmel was reacting to Cruz, I wondered, maybe someday these two men would actually sit down together. What a fantastic episode of Jimmy Kimmel Live that would be. Kimmel certainly seems to be trying to rise above the current controversy to some degree. He had words of praise for Erica Kirk.
Over the weekend, a very beautiful moment, I don't know if you saw this, on Sunday, Erica Kirk forgave the man who shot her husband. She forgave him. That is an example we should follow. If you believe in the teachings of Jesus as I do, there it was. That's it. I posted a message on Instagram on the day he was killed, sending love to his family and asking for compassion, and I meant it. It was never my intention to make light of the murder of a young man.
Kimmel is clearly trying to move past this Kirk controversy. He does not have some war he wants to wage with Erica Kirk. He does not want to be at odds with Turning Point USA. Look, Turning Point USA continues to demand an apology out of Kimmel, and that's never going to happen. Kimmel's trying to move on, but he's not under any impression that he was wrong to begin with. He acknowledges maybe his comments were ill-timed, but he believes what he said was true at the time. He talked about his gratitude to Disney.
Every night, they've defended my right to poke fun at our leaders and to advocate for subjects that I think are important by allowing me to use their platform, and I am very grateful for that.
Kimmel was very clear in his monologue. This is not just about him or his show. It's about his employees, but it's also about late night TV more broadly, and it's about all Americans having the right to free speech. He doesn't want the focus to be just on him, and that's why I think a sit down with Senator Ted Cruz would be incredible. Let's see dialogue between two individuals who disagree on many things, but can agree on others. Let's see Kimmel use his platform to advance a real political dialogue and not just jabs at President Trump.
Do you think that this is a breakthrough moment for late night, and perhaps it saves late night, or at least gets ABC's attention that they say, hey, we're going to renew Jimmy Kimmel in May?
One thing I've learned covering television is that every time there's a battle between a late night host and the parent company, the entire late night industry benefits. All of the shows benefit. All of the shows feel more energy and enthusiasm, and frankly, ratings interest as well. So this is one of those moments where people are paying more attention to late night television as a whole, and I think all the shows benefit to some degree. As Kimmel said, Trump also wants Jimmy Fallon off the air, and I love how Kimmel told his viewers to stand up and defend Fallon if there is some chance that NBC is going to take action against The Tonight Show. There was a real sense of solidarity from Kimmel, and we've seen that from Colbert and Fallon as well. In a weird way, all of these comedians are in this together. They all want to defend each other's free speech rights, and they all want to defend against this notion of government coercion of private companies to censor content.
Our long national late nightmare is over. Come on! Yes, sir!
Brian, you know, nowadays, you don't necessarily need a broadcast television network if you want to get your word out. Joe Rogan has proved that. So many other podcasters. We've seen Tucker Carlson go and do his own thing way back in the day. Glenn Beck did it. Could Kimmel go out and do his own thing where he can speak his mind freely and not have to worry about the censorship of any network or the president?
This saga has proven that Kimmel has a very valuable brand separate from ABC. Kimmel could absolutely walk across the proverbial street and set up shop in many other places. Right now, he's also expressing gratitude to Disney and to ABC. He has a lot of friends at ABC. He's not trying to leave the network. So this actually might have brought him closer to the bosses, even though he was ticked off at the decision to suspend his show last week.
What should viewers be watching for next when it comes to Kimmel?
Now, the number one question is whether those local station owners who are holding out and preempting Kimmel will feel so much pressure to bring him back that they will restore the show. If they don't, we're going to see a further fracture between red and blue America.
What about Brendan Carr? He holds a lot of weight in this, and he also is the one who really initiated this whole action by the Nexstar and Sinclair stations, and Kimmel really went after him yesterday.
Brendan Carr is the most embarrassing car Republicans have embraced since this one. And that's saying something.
What do you think will be his response? And he also used Carr's own words against him.
I've been reporting on and texting with Brendan Carr all year long. I am very confident that he's going to continue to challenge these media companies. He's going to continue to promote local stations over the national networks. But I don't think he will be as explicit, sounding kind of like a mob boss, the way that he was last week.
I mean, look, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. You could certainly see a path forward for suspension over this.
There was a lesson learned by Carr last week. He was so explicit, he was so blunt in his pressure against ABC that it may have backfired severely.
Why do you think he did that?
I think Carr spoke the way he did on that right-wing podcast because he was feeling emboldened. He was feeling really powerful. I don't know, maybe he got high on his own supply. It happens to everybody. But in this case, it created such a counter-reaction, such a backlash, that it drew attention all across the country to the Trump administration's use of government power to coerce private companies. The uprising from viewers, from Disney Plus subscribers, from Disneyland visitors, that uprising ultimately, I think, hurt Carr's cause.
This morning, I'm canceling my Disney Plus. I'm trying to say with the pocketbook that I do not support what they're doing with Jimmy.
I just canceled my Disney Plus and Hulu subscriptions.
There's no real way for the public to know how many people dropped Disney Plus as a result of this controversy. But here's the thing. Disney does know. Disney has the data, and I have to believe that had an impact on the decision to bring Kimmel back.
Kimmel also made a joke about, how to turn back on your Disney Plus subscription.
Now, a lot of people have been asking me if there are conditions for my return to the air, and there is one. Disney has asked me to read the following statement, and I agreed to do it. Here we go. To reactivate your Disney Plus and Hulu account.
I thought that was Kimmel's funniest joke, this idea that he was going to encourage people now to get back onto Disney Plus. It speaks volumes about how big this controversy became and how much power Kimmel now has on ABC. Kimmel's viewers want him to be a free speech warrior, and he seems happy to take up that cause. I think we're going to hear from him night after night about keeping all of our free speech rights intact.
Well, one thing I did learn from Lenny Bruce and George Carlin and Howard Stern is that a government threat to silence a comedian the president doesn't like is anti-American. I also want to thank all of you who supported our show, cared enough to do something about it, to make your voices heard so that mine can be heard. I will never forget it.